A longtime local doctor and veteran of World War II was laid to rest in Bangor today. Lila McCormick has more on his amazing life.
Philip Thomas passed away last month at the age of 109. He was one of the oldest veterans in the U.S. He was born in Monson in 1916 and later attended Bowdoin College and the Boston University School of Medicine. After serving during World War II as a flight surgeon, he returned home to start a general practice in Monson before moving to Bangor and dedicating his life to the field of anesthesiology. Dr. Thomas was deeply loved by family and friends who gathered today to celebrate his life.
We are just so grateful for everyone coming today and honoring him and speaking about his legacy, and we miss him. We already miss him, so.
I had Dr. Phil as a patient. He was an amazing man, full of knowledge, and just showed his love for history.
He was very articulate, very friendly, and just somebody that's easy to like. His memory was incredible for his age, especially.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming out to honor my father. He loved the community, loved the state, loved being in the service and honoring our country.
He's remembered as a man who loved his family, the outdoors, animals, and baseball. The funeral service for the veteran was held with military honors at Brookings Smiths, including riders from the Patriot Guard. Lila McCormick, WABI News, Bangor.